Price of kerosene up 8.6% in September, that's in Nigeria. Ghana textile manufacturers ask for extension of zero VAT regime. Climate Investment Funds partners International Renewable Energy Agency on clean energy. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Ini John Mekwa. We start off as usual with market numbers here in Africa. There was more of positive sentiment trailed intraday activities. Nigeria's main index was up 0.10%, while South Africa's GSE rose by almost 1% at intraday. Similarly, the Egypt's EJX 30 jumped more than 2%, precisely 2.48% at intraday. Meanwhile, Kenya closed Monday's session negative. Over to the Middle East now, where major indexes were mostly in the green at intraday. Abu Dhabi main index rose marginally. It was up 0.02%, while Dubai's index edged higher by 0.33%. Elsewhere in the region, Saudi Arabia's main index rose moderately by 0.14%. But on the flip side, Qatari exchange recorded a loss. It was down more than 1% at intraday. Going to Europe now, stocks were higher today as positive corporate earnings offered a tailwind to global markets. We have details now with Conrad joining us from Frankfurt. Hello, Conrad. Good afternoon. Hello, Conrad. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Hi. Sorry.
Okay, yeah. So Swiss bank UBS has come out with the best quarterly earnings report in 6 years. How long can this go on for with large international banks continue to report such strong numbers?
That's a really good question because the strong earnings report for UBS for the third quarter, as well as other strong earnings reports from other large global investment banks, have depended from a number of extraordinary factors, and it's unclear how long those factors will continue to drive the business of banks. The pandemic has played a role. It has had a positive effect for the banks as wealthy clients saw their assets soar as central banks have pumped trillions of US dollars and of euros into the global economy. So the question how long this can last really depends on what the central banks will be doing and whether or not the expected and hoped for recovery will really happen next year. Today, the European Central Bank here in Frankfurt came out with its quarterly bank lending survey, which shows that the banks towards the end of the year are expecting stricter conditions for lending, but also they expect more demand for loans. So at the moment, I would say the outlook for the banks remains positive and warrants some optimism.
And Facebook has reported a $9 billion profit for the last quarter. Facebook has been in the news for some days now for not very good reasons. Well, later today, more tech firms in the US will come out with their reports. What are we expecting from those other tech companies?
Well, markets people here in Europe have been preparing for strong results from Texas Instruments, Microsoft, the parent company of Google called Alphabet. The question that people here are now discussing is whether strong results will come in and whether they will have the potential to push the share prices of these companies further, because all of the companies I mentioned saw the share prices rise significantly in the course of this year 2021. So the expectations are really high. Here in Europe, a number of tech companies, smaller ones, have come out with very positive surprises in terms of their earnings reports. One example is Pfeiffer Vacuum, which is a company that produces machines for the computer chip industry. After a very strong earnings report, the share of Pfeiffer rose or has risen more than 10% here.
And Europe is trying to become independent from Asia computer chip suppliers. But for now, all eyes are on China and its ongoing fight against COVID-19. Do we see more supply disruptions in the near future?
Yes, we are. You know, today in the northwestern province of Gansu in China, a whole city called Lanzhou was put under quarantine, closed down, if you like. And, you know, this city, Lanzhou, is not only a major city, it has nearly 4 million inhabitants. It's also in the Gansu province, which is one of the leading provinces in the Chinese industry of large-scale integrated circuits, which means that computer chips are made there. So, of course, the Chinese policies against COVID, more lockdowns, more quarantines, more factories closed down, this is having a very negative ripple effect for companies here in Europe. For example, in the car industry or in the industry making machines for the healthcare industry, they simply cannot work the way they need and want to.
Well, very unfortunate. The supply disruption persists and seems it's going to be on for a while. Well, thank you so much, Conrad, for giving us updates from Frankfurt, and enjoy the rest of your day.
You too.
So let's move to the UK now, talking about growth in retail sector. And of course, other details, we have Juliana from our London studios. Hello, Juliana. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Ine.
So retail sales growth in the UK picked up in October, and that's in spite of the supply disruptions. How come?
Well, it's a good question. I think for the month of October, it could be the fact that people, after the end of the furlough scheme, knew what their position was when it comes to the labour market. So they felt more confident in purchasing goods. But I think more broadly, economists would say this could be a little bit of a splurge because people are afraid of shortages. So even though the Confederation of British Industries Trade Distributive Survey have shown some growth in retail sales during the month of October, the headline really is the supply demand. 2 out of 5 retailers that contribute to the survey said it is really starting to affect them. Not only are they seeing less stock, they're struggling to hire staff, and this is causing major concern for some retailers. Of course, the British tabloids do love a headline, as we saw when it came to the fuel shortage. First of all, it was BP saying that a couple of fuel courts were running dry, and the next minute, lots of people were panic buying, and we are starting to see that this is being reflected in the retail sales figures as people are afraid of Christmas. There were reports over the weekend, Innie, that some people are stocking up their freezers with frozen turkeys and frozen vegetables just to make sure they've got enough food on the table on Christmas Day. I, for one, haven't been doing it, but it is starting to be reflected. The update was enough to boost the pound just before the intraday numbers were out. But I think even though we are seeing signs that retail sales are picking up, is this just a panic buy? And I think economists would say yes to that.
Oh, okay. And then this morning we talked about Reckitt Benckiser, and now it seems they're influencing the market.
It is. In fact, Reckitt is one of the biggest rises on the FTSE. It did open the day in positive trade. It's still there at intraday. We did hear from Reckitt saying that sales in the 3 months to September were up 3.3% year on year. Net revenues came in at £3 billion. And this is really because of consumer behaviour has changed. People, we hope, are more cleaner in the wake of the pandemic, stocking up on bleach and Dettol. And this is likely to come for months in the future, because, of course, we know COVID isn't going anywhere, so people are still afraid. At intraday, the FTSE All Share is up 0.67%. The FTSE 100 is up by the same amount, 0.67%, and the FTSE 250 is up by 0.80%. In the currencies market, the British pound is up on the US dollar by 0.39%, up on the euro by 0.31%, and up on the Japanese yen by 0.65%. Just worth mentioning, which I forgot to mention in the first question, Innie, lots of retailers are really looking towards tomorrow's budget by the Chancellor for some tax breaks. Business rates has been a long, hard discussion. Lots of them struggled before the pandemic, certainly through the pandemic, and they're hoping that they can get some relief by the Chancellor in tomorrow's update.
Yeah, we're going to have a very rich conversation tomorrow concerning the budget. Thank you so much, Juliana, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Well, let's move to Asia now, where stocks were mixed after major indexes on Wall Street rose to record closing highs stateside. Japanese stocks led gains regionally as the Nikkei 225 jumped 1.77%, while the Topix index gained 1.15%. South Korea's Kospi advanced 0.94%, almost 1%, closing at over 3,000 points. Mainland Chinese stocks closed lower as Shanghai Composite slipped 0.34%. While the Shenzhen component shed 0.36%. Also, Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index shed 0.36%. In Australia, the S&P AX 200 rose slightly to close at over 7,000 points. We go to the U.S. now, where stock futures rose in early morning trading as investors await a lot of major technology earnings, with the broader market at a record high. Dow futures were up 110 points. S&P 500 futures and Nasdaq 100 futures also traded solidly in positive territory. Shares of social media giant Facebook ticked 2.3% higher in pre-market trading after the company topped analyst earnings expectations. Shares of the Dow Jones Industrial Average and S&P 500 closed at record highs yesterday. The Dow gained 64 points. The S&P 500 gained 0.5%, helped by a 12% rally in Tesla stock as the electric car maker hit $1 trillion market capitalization for the very first time. The Nasdaq Composite was the outperformer, rising almost 1%. The technology-focused average is about 1.1% from its record high. Going to the oil space now, prices edge lower today, taking a breather from a sustained rally driven by strong demand in the United States, which is the world's biggest consumer of oil and its products. Brent crude was down 0.4% at $85.64 a barrel, after gaining 0.5% yesterday. U.S. oil was down 0.53% at $83.55 a barrel, having finished unchanged the previous session and testing new highs. And China's red-hot power and coal markets have cooled somewhat after government intervention. Energy prices remain elevated worldwide as temperatures fall with the onset of the northern winter. Goldman Sachs says that Brent is likely to push above its year-end forecast of $90 a barrel. The bank estimated switching to oil from gas may add 1 million barrels per day to oil demand. The market will be closely watching U.S. inventory levels this week, and crude stockpiles are forecast to have risen by 1.7 million barrels last week. In the metals market now, gold prices edge lower on early trade, weighed down by uptick in the dollar as investors eye upcoming key central bank meetings this week. Spot gold fell 0.1%, while U.S. gold futures was flat. On Monday, the metal rose nearly 1%, only about $4 shy over 1 month peak. Spot silver fell 0.1% to $24.53 per ounce. Platinum edged 0.1% down, and palladium gained 0.2%. From the Bank of Japan and the European Central Bank, they expect to hold a meeting tomorrow. Also, the U.S. Federal Reserve and the Bank of England are also set to meet next week. We'll take a break now. When we come back, we have lots of stories for you from the African continent. To stay with us is Business Incorporated on Channels Television. Well, you're welcome back. Let's head to our commodity space now. Dual-purpose kerosene, another name for aviation fuel, has additional uses outside the aviation industry. Of course, domestic. The average price for a litre paid by consumers in Nigeria increased by 8.6% month-on-month and by 24.8% year-on-year, from 434 naira 39 kobo in September. That's what it was in September, but in August it was just about 400 naira. Can this hike be attributed to increase in demand owing to its multiple uses? Well, Sheyi Omidiora will answer that question and a whole lot more. He's an analyst with Financial Derivatives Company, and he talks to us now. Hello, Sheyi. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me today.
Great to have you. But, you know, these other demands connected to kerosene or aviation fuel, whichever you like to call it, they are not new. So Can we say it is responsible for the price surge in kerosene?
Okay, yes. So before we even talk about what is happening to aviation fuel, we actually need to see what is happening to crude oil. We have seen a recent rally in crude oil prices, which is largely due to the fact that the energy crisis in Europe and also across the world recently, and this has seen a lot of countries that have been pushing towards sustainable fuels now having to pivot back to crude oil. And because of that, derivatives of crude oil, such as aviation fuel or kerosene in this case as well, has also seen a significant increase in prices, of course, from even its previous levels in September and in August, and even from last year as well. So this, of course, isn't particularly surprising because of this increase. It's a derivative of crude oil. So, of course, this price increase isn't surprising in any way at all. We also know that there are supply constraints which are still currently affecting the crude oil market. And of course, these supply constraints are also going to filter through to the derivatives of crude oil as well. So of course, these are some of the things that have led to the sharp increase in prices for jet fuel or kerosene, or in this case, aviation fuel as well.
This leading to increased risk of adulterated kerosene pervading the markets?
Oh, well, to the extent that they are used for similar things, it's not going to be unlikely, because we have seen in the past where petrol, PMS, has been adulterated when there have been a sharp increase in prices. And of course, it's not going to be surprising if this same thing also filters through to derivatives as well. So of course not. It feeds into the risk that we are likely to see. It's a possibility that this might also happen. But of course, we expect regulators to put in place systems that will prevent against this, because we have seen in the past where accidents happen, especially in the airline industry, and because of the way that it's produced, there are leakages. Adulterated fuel is going to lead to say things like leakages in the tanks of airplanes, and this is not something we want to see. So yes, it's something regulators will definitely need to look into.
And is there a way Nigeria can position itself to maximize the opportunity in sustainable jet fuel production at this time?
Well, to the extent that it's a new technology and something that so many other countries are looking to get into, then of course I believe Nigeria should start looking into it as well. But of course, there's the question of it being a derivative of crude oil and Nigeria still being an exporter of crude. Of course, it's something that I think that Nigeria should definitely look into, but it's whether or not we are even going to have the comparative advantage to even be able to compete against a lot of other countries who have technology and who have been exploring this alternative for years. Another thing as well is it's this transition to sustainable jet fuel. The transition is still some, probably maybe even decades away. And it still costs a lot more to use sustainable jet fuel than it is to use the unrefined or the alternate source, the current kerosene or jet fuel that is currently still in use. So the transition to sustainable jet fuel are probably still decades away. So yes, Nigeria should start positioning itself, but of course, it's also going to be dependent on whether or not Nigeria will even have a comparative advantage to begin with.
Well, I do hope we find comparative advantage somewhere there. Thank you so much, Shay, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you very much.
Just before we go to our next conversation, the Climate Investment Funds and the International Renewable Energy Agency are joining forces to accelerate investment in clean energy globally. This is just days ahead of the United Nations Climate Conference in Glasgow. The new partnership sends a strong signal to the international community and affirms both parties' commitment to raise climate ambition in pursuit of the Paris Agreement and the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. The organizations intend to leverage comparative advantage to scale up and support climate and smart development worldwide. Under the MOU, CIF and IRENA will facilitate knowledge sharing on energy transitions to promote climate-smart development. Joint analytical activities will foster evidence-based investment and policy making on energy transition in cooperation with government, the private sector, civil society, local communities, and major multilateral development banks. So now let's see what's happening in Ghana. The Export and Import Bank of Ghana has before now set aside $10 million to support the textiles and garments industry, and that was in the for the first quarter of next year. Our local textile manufacturers are appealing to the government to extend a zero-rate value-added tax policy on the supply of locally manufactured textiles by 10 years. They've been enjoying this since 2019 to help revive the local textile industry, which was facing imminent collapse, mainly because of influx of pirated and cheap products into the domestic market. A very similar scenario to what we have in Nigeria. Well, to tell us what's going on in that area, we have George Weafe, business editor at Joy TV, to bring us up to date about this plea for extension of zero VAT regime. Hello, George. Good afternoon.
Hi, thank you so much, and hope how are you doing in Lagos?
Thank you from Accra. Good to have you. So does it look like the government is going to heed the plea of the textile manufacturers to extend the zero VAT regime?
It might be a quite difficult thing. When you look at the fiscal space for government, it has been quite tight, spending a lot during last year during COVID-19 on several social intervention programs. So going forward, in terms of social relief for next year, the space might not be there. If you follow or even engage some government officials, you hear some arguments that maybe going forward, Ghanaians might have to look at paying more to support government going into next year because of the fact that a lot was spent last year to support Ghanaians or cushion Ghanaians to help them how COVID had impacted on them negatively. So it's quite a tight rope in terms of the government heeding to the advice of these textiles manufacturers in terms of extending this relief going into next year.
Now, because this is kind of similar to what we are facing here in Nigeria, the influx of pirated and cheap products, won't this increase the price of materials and then have a ripple effect on the textile industry and, of course, the economy generally?
Well, if you engage most of these textiles manufacturers, it looks like they don't even have the option of increasing their prices because they are facing stiff competition from the Far East, where they are cloning their designs. They are far cheaper than what we are doing here. So it's not about increasing their price to stay in business. Rather, increasing their price would be a major disincentive for them that will even lead to the collapse of their firms. So this relief actually help them or give them some space to stay in business whilst they strategize and force or put pressure on government to actually tighten the borders, strengthen security in that area to ensure that they're able to stop these persons from bringing in these designs that are just like cloning theirs. So if you engage them, the argument is that they don't have an option and they need more support from government, not just about the tax relief, but also ensuring that there's a task force in place to check the smuggling of these fake textiles into the country and also make it difficult or more punitive for these marketmen out there who are selling these pirated textiles on the market. So they don't have the option of increasing the price of their textiles to make it in business, but rather more interventions from government so they can stay in business.
All right. Thank you so much, George Weafe. More support is needed from the government, and yet even the government seems to be overburdened. Similar situation. Thank you so much, George, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Same to you.
Well, that's where we'll draw the curtains on the program today. Thank you so much for being a part of it. I'm Ini John Mekwa.